Welcome back to Hey, Have You Seen That Film? Glad to have you here, and glad to have my wife with me today, as she and I are going to be discussing a film of the 90s, and I'm spacing on what year it even came out all of a sudden. 93? Anyways, we're going to be discussing The First Knight, starring Sean Connery as King Arthur of Camelot, Richard Gere, thank you, as Lancelot, and Julia
Ormond.
She
plays Sabrina.
Well, not in this movie. She plays Guinevere. So the plot it follows along with the legends of King Arthur and focusing specifically on the love triangle or the love affair between Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot. Obviously, King Arthur is the king of Camelot, and Guinevere is supposed to be the most beautiful lady in the land, and Arthur and Guinevere are going to be married. Along her way to Camelot, a villain who was once a knight of the Round Table and is now trying to take over Camelot and all the land around it, ambushes her and her carriage, and she's almost taken, but Lancelot saves her.
And he's not a knight yet.
No, he's not a knight yet. And once Lancelot saves her, he gets her close enough to Camelot. She makes it to Camelot. Things are going great between her and Arthur.
He tells her...
We're just getting the plot. We're just getting the plot. We're not going to go into details. Okay, well, you're right. He tells her before he leaves that she will kiss him one day. Mm-hmm. He's very arrogant. And so they part their ways. She's kind of repulsed by him. Anyway, she makes it to Camelot. Eventually, he makes it to Camelot. And tries to impress her there with this
obstacle course
that he does without wearing any protection because he's so cool.
And it's basically, is it like Survivor or something?
You could,
where there are all those like big things that knock you over. Yeah.
Anyways, the winner gets a kiss. She doesn't kiss him then, and I can't remember why, but she's kidnapped eventually by the villain. Lancelot saves her, and after saving her, he becomes a Knight of the Round Table, and the whole time there's this tension between the two of them, even though she's in love with Arthur.
And married to him.
Arthur. So it's a very... if you know the story of Lancelot, Guinevere, and King Arthur, you know eventually what happens. If you don't, I won't spoil it in case you want to go watch this movie after we're done talking here. But after watching it, we watched as our own little film club, and there was things we liked about it, and there was a lot of things we had issues with. Some of the things we liked about it, or I liked about it, that's where we'll start. We'll start what I liked about it. For starters, I thought the chemistry between King Arthur and Guinevere was the best chemistry out of anybody in the movie. I liked that. So it had Sean Connery, and this was made in the 90s, so Sean Connery was older, and the Guinevere actress was much younger, and they didn't try to hide the fact.
They made it work.
Yeah, they didn't try to hide the fact that that there was such an age gap.
They didn't pretend that it wasn't there.
Yeah, like when they knew each other because Arthur was really good friends with Guinevere's father, and that's how they knew one another, and he would go on hunting trips with her father, and throughout the movie they kind of...
And she'd be on those hunting trips.
Yeah, throughout the movie, they're kind of reminiscing upon fun stories or fun memories they have with each other of her growing up and him hanging out with her dad. Him. Yeah, and it's not creepy stories and like that. No. But I thought that was a really good aspect of the film. I did think the people they casted did a good job. I won't necessarily say that everything was
Like in their individual roles, they did well.
Yes, in their individual roles, everyone did good. I would say that Sean Connery's probably the highlight. He did a really good job.
Well,
and
it's Sean Connery.
Sir Sean Connery, sorry. Rest in peace, sir. So I liked that. I thought that I always enjoy twist on the stories of well-known legends, and this one was an interesting twist. Like it was still pretty faithful, but there was, it did take its own twist, its own liberties. That's what I'm looking for. So that was good. And the music, I did enjoy the music. It was done by Jerry Goldsmith, who also did The Mummy, among other things. And it was I've listened to it quite a bit.
I knew the soundtrack before I ever watched the film. I heard songs from it.
Yeah, and I've listened to it a lot since watching the film. So those were some of the highlights. What were some of the highlights for you?
Some of the highlights for me, I am huge on costumery and like settings. Or backdrops. I don't know what exactly you would qualify that as, but I did like the costumery for the most part. It wasn't on the level of like Ever After costumery, because that's like top notch for me. But I did enjoy that, except for that one scene where they're caught in the rain. I just thought that was kind of stupid.
Their costumes were stupid then?
Yeah. Well, hers specifically.
Because she was in her nightgown?
Yeah, it just didn't seem... that whole scene was just cheesy and uncomfortable. And if you thought the scene was, like, hot and steamy, then, like, comment below and let us know. So the costumery, for the most part, I liked. And the settings were very well done. Like, I believed that they were in medieval
They did
England.
have some pretty cool sets.
Like the castle and the like countryside.
Well,
I thought it was beautiful.
I would point out even the bad guy's lair.
Yeah.
Like the outside of it was this run-down, broken castle from wherever they were filming. It was really cool.
Yeah, so for me, those were two of the highlights. I'm with you. Most everyone individually casted did well. I actually didn't love Richard Gere as Lancelot, and we talked about this a little bit. It might have just been the writing, because there are other things that we've seen him in that were like, yeah, he's pretty good at that. Like, he's believable. He's a good actor.
Runaway Bride. We like him in that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the only thing I've seen him in some other stuff, but it might have just been the lines that were written for him and the way he was written to be this like arrogant guy. It didn't work for me. I didn't like him. I found myself rolling my eyes at him a lot. I did.
I know, I'm just laughing.
And yeah, I didn't like him. There was another thing that I wanted to say that I liked, though. We can come back to it if I remember.
So, and then moving into what we didn't like. I know for a fact
we
both had issues with Guinevere and Lancelot's relationship and chemistry. They didn't do such a good job at...
I didn't believe it.
I didn't believe it. Like, the only times we saw them together, it was often they were bickering, and Lancelot was just so cocky throughout it all.
Yeah. For me, it's what like a boy in junior high would write.
Yeah.
Thinking it's this really, high sexual tension.
Kiss me again someday.
And it just, for like someone who's grown up and married and in a wonderful committed relationship, it was just like, it was a terrible love story.
And it wasn't necessarily, because I'm not for affairs or anything like that, but it's like going into this movie and knowing what it was about and knowing the legend, you knew it was going to happen. You knew they were going to kiss at some point. And
that's what I wanted to say.
Oh, go ahead.
I loved the film, and it would be a beautiful film if I liked the story more.
Yes.
So the only bad thing about the movie was the story, and
that was the main downfall. Like if
it's just a bad story.
If I could get more behind the relationship and the reasoning behind Lancelot and Guinevere kissing and being in love, I would have enjoyed it much more. But
when if they'd been in love before she even met King Arthur and married him, like that doesn't excuse it still.
Yeah.
But it would still not just be like this weird fling that's yeah.
Well, and then they, like I said, they never really had like a real heart-to-heart conversation. And the one time they did, it was like they tried to delve more into Lancelot's character. And as a child,
I forgot.
It was like
we shouldn't laugh.
No, it's not like that situation's funny. It's just like they just kind of they just threw it in. He was like, "Oh yeah, as a kid," and like you see these flashbacks, and it's, I don't know.
But he's still the arrogant.
But yeah, it's like as a kid, my village was burned and attacked, and so that's why I don't belong to any kingdom. And it's like they threw that in only so we could get more sympathy for Lancelot. But I don't really feel like I felt more sympathetic for Lancelot.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to...
Like, you need to heal your issues before you try and, like, be with someone.
Yeah. Before I forget this, a reason I did like the music, and I pointed it... When we watched this, I pointed it out. It was when it's the final battle, and King Arthur's like, fight for Camelot. And, like, the music, like, picks up, and there's these choirs, like, whoa!
And you're like, yeah!
I was like, yeah, let's fight! So that was really good about the music. But going along, so I did enjoy a lot of the battles, but I will have to say, I felt like the final sword fight between Lancelot, and I can't even think of the bad guy's name. It definitely felt very choreographed, and the filming of it was weird. Because
it's like they sped it up at one point.
Yeah, that's one of my other issues. So like the sword fight, like the sword fighting was fine, but then once they start fighting, it's like the first few hits, it's like.
Well, it's because he had Excalibur.
Not then, he didn't. When they first started for it was like they very much. You could tell that it was very choreographed. Like you're gonna do this, you're gonna step here and here. It didn't feel natural. It's kind of a weird. You can YouTube it and you'll see what I'm saying. I'll show you again to like be like this is. It's just weird.
I mean, Captain Kirk fighting the lizard alien was better than that. Just kidding. That was terrible.
Like the first little bit was weird, and then they got better, and then it was some of the weird shots. Like, was it Guinevere? Not Guinevere. Lancelot or the bad guy like kicks, and they filmed. The kick, like you watched him kick from
and that was the first time it had been filmed like that.
Yeah, and then I think there was a punch like that too during their fight. It was just kind of a weird or an interesting take on filming the fight. Like you watch them,
especially
punch
when they
like
hadn't
this,
filmed
and then
any of the film like that.
Yeah, but that the other issue is so. I felt like they made their version of Camelot more like they took away the magic of it.
As if it were in history.
Yeah, like if it was actually historical. They never. I don't even think they ever mentioned the name Excalibur. No, they don't ever like tell you this is Excalibur.
There's no Lady of the Lake. There's no Excalibur.
None of Merlin's not in it. Nothing of that. But then, and so all of their swords, all the Knights of the Round Table swords, are exactly the same. But then at the very end, when Lancelot is about to be killed, that was another issue. The bad guy could have easily killed him, and he just like takes this moment to stop and look at the battle taking. He takes like 5 seconds when he could have just stabbed Lancelot and moved on. And then when he's about to stab Lancelot, he grabs Excalibur, and suddenly there's these.
And you know it is because it's the sword that King Arthur had.
He had dropped it, and then like when Lancelot sees it, this light shines upon it, and he picks it up, and all of a sudden he's like. Fast motion.
They like sped up.
Yeah, and you had never like there was no magic beforehand. Excalibur hadn't been talked about having magical powers, and so if you had not known about Excalibur and known that it had possessed magic powers, which I don't even know if one of them is speeding up I don't know. It was just so weird. Like because we had known the legend, it was like, oh, okay, obviously that's Excalibur, and
That's what they're trying to do.
This is its powers. But if you don't know the story of King Arthur and like that, like, you would have been like, what the literal crap is going on?
But it was also just out of place for the film because they had done so much of it just like, if this had happened,
if this was
in the medieval era,
like real history,
this is potentially how the events would have played out.
Yeah.
And then we've got a random magic sword in there. It was just... It was weird.
So that was some of my issues, or those were my issues with the first night. What about you, dude?
I feel like I've just been adding the whole time, so you know what my issues are.
So, like, all in all, it was a fine film. I would watch it again if it was on, or if it was kind of like, I'm in the mood for a medieval story. I would watch it again. I'm not going to say that maybe necessarily my first pick of a medieval story.
No.
But there was good things about it, and then there was kind of things about it. So.
And again, if it weren't for the story itself, the film would have been great.
I won't even necessarily say the story. I'm just going to say if the relationship between Lancelot and Guinevere was better written, because like I said, King Arthur and Guinevere, that relationship, I was fully invested in. I was happy for it.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one other thing I want to point out, and you really like this. It's a funny moment. Right as Lancelot and Guinevere kiss. Oops, spoilers, they kiss. King Arthur walks in, and he has one of his other knights of the Round Table with him.
Oh!
And there's just like this mad passionate kissing going on, and then it stops, and King Arthur, you can tell, is in complete shock. And the one knight with him doesn't say a word. He just kind of bows his head and he backs out of the room because he knows this isn't a good moment.
You're right. I do love this.
So whoever that knight was is like, shout out to you, bro, for just being like, yeah, this is a bad time.
Yeah, I wish there would have been more development of certain side characters like him, because when I saw him do that, I was just like, what a guy. He's like, he knows, his place. I forgot to say this about the kiss, but after we watched it, we talked about how their kiss was just another, Lancelot and Guinevere's was just another example of how poorly written their love was. Because as the way I think about it, I think they had this like crazy make out lustful kiss, because in their minds it was like, oh, like it's been building up to this, da 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 da. But for me, again, if it was a love story I could kind of get behind, because they'd been holding back and been so in love for so long, I feel like it would have been a lot more tender and sweet of a kiss. If it was more out of love, but their kiss just felt very lustful and just like they were just going at it.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that bugged me. I was like, I feel like the kiss should have been more tender and sweet.
I agree. I remember talking about that.
Yeah.
So all in all, I would probably give this like a 6.5, somewhere around there.
I'm more like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was gonna say a 2 out of 5, but you're doing it out of 10, right?
Yeah, out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, there are the things that I love. The costumery, the scenery, but a lot of other films are really good at that too, and really good at the love development and
that's its biggest flaw.
Yeah.
So, I think I would recommend this if you like Camelot, if you like the story of King Arthur and Guinevere, Lancelot.
Those medieval legends.
Yeah, if you like medieval legends or just medieval stories, then I would recommend this. Yeah, and you might really enjoy it more than we did.
And let us know.
Yeah. But thanks for watching today. I hope that this gives you something else to go out and watch and hopefully enjoy. So, thanks. We'll see ya.